We are a nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party. I've never seen anything like it. The investigations of politicians, it's just never ending. Me, everything I do, if I make a phone call, he's under investigation.
Welcome back to the Cross Connection. I'm Charles Blow, in for Tiffany Cross. Donald Trump was defiant as he stumped for Republican candidates in Arizona last night. It could be a prelude to what we hear when he returns to Washington on Tuesday for the first time since leaving office. He will deliver a speech at the MAGA-friendly America First Agenda Summit. The event comes just days after the January 6th committee showed how Trump intentionally did nothing to stop rioters breaching the Capitol. And the next day, he refused to even admit he lost the 2020 election.
But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
With the threat of criminal charges mounting from multiple ongoing probes, Rolling Stone reports that Trump may run for office again in 2024 to take advantage of the legal protections of the presidency. And he might announce his bid as early as September, just in time for the next round of January 6 hearings. Joining me now, Carlos Curbelo, former Florida congressman and MSNBC political analyst, Asawin Subsang, senior political reporter for Rolling Stone, and Jennifer Rubin, MSNBC political analyst and Washington Post opinion writer. She's also the author of Resistance: How Women Saved Democracy from Donald Trump. Here's what Trump had to say during his rally in Prescott, Arizona last night. Take a listen.
I ran twice, I won twice, and did much better the second time than I did the first, getting millions more votes in 2020 than we got in 2016. And likewise, getting more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country by far. And now, we may have to do it again.
Carlos, doesn't this sound like Trump is definitely running again?
Yeah, this is vintage Donald Trump, Charles, sharing half the truth. I mean, he did get more votes than any other sitting president. The only problem is the other candidate, Joe Biden, got more votes than he did, and that's, you know, the person who wins the election. This is all about self-interest. When Donald Trump ran in 2016 for the first time, it was about self-interest. It was about building his brand. And this next run for president, which I think is almost a certainty, is part of his legal defense. This is an element of Donald Trump's legal defense, to run for president, to say he's being politically persecuted. He's setting it all up. It's just a continuation of the lie that he began a few years ago.
Also, in a recent article you and your colleague wrote, Justice Department policy forbids the prosecution of a sitting president, effectively insulating Trump from any federal charges for another 4 years. The law is less clear on whether a president can face prosecution from states while in office, but any attempt to put Trump on trial in a state case would likely be litigated in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is dominated by conservative judges, 3 of whom were appointed by Trump himself. Could this be a get-out-of-jail-free card?
Well, it's a situation where, look, there are a number of factors why Donald Trump has been telling people he does want to seek the presidency again in 2024. But as the January 6th hearings intensified, and as the various investigations, including the criminal investigations, including the current wide-ranging investigation going on in the Biden Justice Department intensified, people who are still very close to Donald Trump will tell you that when he would talk about his potential 2024 plans nowadays, as these investigations and hearings were intensifying publicly, the more often he would link those conversations to immediately segueing to things like, oh, you know, they couldn't do this to me while I was president because of all the legal protections, or him fantasizing about such possibilities as when he is president again. When he talks about in private, he's phrasing it as when, not if. A new Republican administration will put a stop to what the Biden DOJ is doing to him and his close associates right now. And so when it comes to his talk of a possible 2024 White House bid, when he talks about it privately, it is very clear to confidants that that the legal protections of the Oval Office are incredibly front of mind for him. And just to clarify one more thing, the idea that Trump could be in serious potential legal jeopardy right now isn't something that is simply liberal wish casting or things that his critics say over and over again. This is something that is talked about frequently at the upper echelons of Trump world, on his legal team, among his former administration officials. One of his former top White House attorneys, Ty Cobb, told us just the other week, very bluntly, that he thinks criminal charges are certainly possible for people like Donald Trump and Mark Meadows right now.
Jennifer, Trump and Pence had dueling events in Arizona. Pence tweeted yesterday, if the Republican Party allows itself to become consumed by yesterday's grievances, we will lose. This seems like a dig at Trump. Would Pence be ready to take on Trump in 2024?
Well, he seems to be interested in doing so. Whether the Republican Party is interested in Mike Pence is another story. It is very interesting, the situation in Arizona, where they're backing competing candidates. Trump, of course, has had mixed results in backing the super MAGA candidates around the country. Some have won. Some, like David Perdue in Georgia, have not won. Pence is trying to encourage the least of MAGA candidates. Doesn't mean that they aren't rock-ribbed conservatives, doesn't mean they aren't anti-choice, doesn't mean there aren't climate deniers, but these are people who did not, at least overtly, premise their entire campaign on the big lie. So this is one kind of testing ground, but I think Pence has a special problem, which is who in the Republican Party is really for him. If you're a diehard Trump supporter, he betrayed the cause. You're like those people out on the campaign trail and then later on the grounds of the Capitol who said this guy was the cause of our demise. Trump would be in office without him. And of course, if you've gotten disgusted with the whole thing and you think it's time to move on, Pence is not really the future of the party, he's the past of the party. So I think he's going to have some trouble getting a toehold. But I have to say, Democrats would be thrilled if he announced in September, because the more this election is about Trump coming back to power, about January 6th, about things like Dobbs, the better the Democrats are going to do. The more it's about simply a referendum on Biden's economic policy, the worse they're going to do. So I think Trump deciding to run early is a gift for the Democrats. I just want to clarify something. Trump, of course, is not the sitting president, so he can be prosecuted both criminally in federal court and in state court. And one of the concerns that many of us have is Merrick Garland is moving so slowly, and that he will run into really a thicket of problems if the Republicans take over the House. And of course, then once the election happens, if Trump becomes president again, you run back into the same problem of prosecuting a sitting president.
Carlos, let's stay on this idea of contenders. A recent poll showed that Donald Trump with a huge double-digit lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis among potential Republican primary voters. Do you think that DeSantis could beat Trump if they both decided to run?
Charles, Ron DeSantis is probably the greatest threat that Donald Trump faces right now. Sure, he's at 25% compared to Trump's 50%, but it's very early. A lot of people in the country don't even know DeSantis. He has a big war chest he's building for his reelection. It's unlikely that he has to use all of it here in Florida to win re-election. He's doing very well in the polls right now. So a lot of people think he's just going to transfer that war chest and begin that campaign for 2024 after he gets reelected. And I will tell you, at least here in Florida, Ron DeSantis could really give Donald Trump run for his money in the primary. And as more and more Republicans, and we're seeing the polling, get disillusioned with Donald Trump, tired of Donald Trump, start realizing that he was responsible for the 6th of January, I really see someone like DeSantis having a big possibility to win this nomination. For Mike Pence, it would be very difficult. I think Mike Pence would run more to clear his name.
Jennifer, let's follow up on that, responsibility for January 6th. Another recent survey shows the majority of Democrats believe that Trump bears a lot of blame for January 6th, but only 18% of Republicans agree. If the DOJ prosecutes Trump, do you think that those numbers will change?
They may change slightly, but the Republicans who are insistent that Donald Trump did nothing, I think, are beyond logic and beyond facts at this point. I think they will simply see him as a martyr to the cause. So I don't think those numbers will change. But I think what is going on is what Carlos just mentioned, which is Republicans may not say they've given up on him, or they may not say that Donald Trump is guilty, but they sure would be interested in someone else who gives them less of a headache, who carries less baggage. And that's why I think you see, although the numbers for support for Trump very high, you are seeing not only in those polls, but in state polling, straw polling, that DeSantis is becoming quite popular. Because although they don't want to blame Trump, they also don't want to have this hanging around their necks for the next 4 years or 8 years or however long. So I think DeSantis really is in the catbird seat here. And remember, there'll be other people who are going to run too. There'll be a Tom Cotton, there'll be a Ted Cruz, and then there'll be the people who are the never Trump people. There'll be Larry Hogan, perhaps Liz Cheney.
Sorry about that. Aswin MSNBC correspondent Shaq Brewster was in Duval County, Florida yesterday asking voters their thoughts on Trump and the January 6th investigation. Take a listen to what they had to say.
I'm not supporting President Trump in the upcoming elections, but it has nothing to do with the January 6th hearings.
It's a really good example of due diligence, just trying to get to the bottom of everything.
It's important, but it's also, I think Congress could spend their time focusing on or bringing to light more important issues.
I think that President Trump was derelict in his duty as president. I think that he incited the riot. I think that there are some charges that they could, that can stick.
Aswin, do you think these hearings are getting through to voters, or are they kind of calcified in their existing positions?
Well, I think the vast majority of voters here, whether they be Republican, Democratic, or Independent, are pretty much set in their opinion of what happened during that anti-democratic crusade and what happened during the riot, and whether or not Trump bears moral or legal or whatever culpability for the violence that day. So I don't think anyone, particularly not top lawmakers and activists and operatives in the Democratic Party, have been under any illusion during this whole time, including during the public hearings, that this would be the make it or break it moment for them for things like such as the 2022 midterm elections. Having said that, these types of hearings, when it comes to historic moments like January 6th and getting to the bottom of exactly what happened behind the scenes in the seat of executive power while such anti-democratic violence and deaths were going on that day, to me, it's almost irrelevant what kind of impact it has on voters. I mean, it is in itself innately important to get to the bottom of, for the historical record at the very least.
Mm-hmm.